2022 is looking to be a great year for Apple, not just because of all of the Macs that we're expecting. iPhone is getting a major upgrade with the iPhone 14 later this year, but that's probably not even the most important iPhone coming in 2022. Let's talk iPhone SE, and then we'll talk iPhone 14 later in the video. Want the latest Apple news, leaks and rumours? Subscribe and ring the bell. iPhone SE over the past couple of weeks has become way more interesting than we expected. It's the same body that we have in the iPhone SE2 with the 4.7-inch LCD panel and a chassis that basically dates back to the iPhone 8 that was released alongside the iPhone 10 in 2017, which is also pretty damn close to the iPhone 6, which came out in 2013, maybe 2014? So the look of this iPhone is nothing to write home about, but when the iPhone SE2 came out with the A13 inside at $399, it was probably the best value phone on the market. Well, this year we get that same body but with A15 inside, 5G technology added to the list too, and probably about the same $399 price tag. So what's the huge deal here? The rumour that iPhone SE2 might be staying around too, just at a lower price point, just as Apple did with the second generation AirPods when the third generation arrived. But the most compelling part is what that price point is going to be, as rumour has it the second gen iPhone SE could well be as low as $199. Just let that sink in, $199 is the current price of the iPod Touch, which presumably would be discontinued if that's what's happening. And the A13 is not exactly outdated, it was just released in the iPad base model last year, in 2021. The Apple TV released in the same year contains an A12. The A13 is still faster in almost every metric than the Qualcomm Snapdragon's fastest chips. So this very base level iPhone SE for less than $200 could be an absolute game changer for Apple in terms of emerging markets. There are some who choose Android phones for the freedom in terms of customizing, of course. Some who buy for innovations like folding displays or being able to scroll with your eyes. But all of that's true, but far more people choose entry-level Android phones because they just need something to get the job done, and price is a big issue for them. Think about all the sales teams out there who need to have a work phone as a secondary device. Now, with an iPhone as a legitimate option as a second handset for a lot more people, a $200 iPhone will massively increase Apple's install base, especially if it actually happens and is even brought out at $300 or $250. There's still going to be far more people that this has opened up to. Assuming that Apple can't make the same margins on these older handsets, which is quite possible, the added install base will still make a huge difference given that Apple's services business is growing year on year too, and it would be a great one for kids. Anyway, on to more fun stuff, the iPhone 14, but first, would you actually go for the older iPhone SE if it's half the price of the new iPhone SE? If an SE is even something that you're interested in, let me know in the comments. But the iPhone 14 is looking to get a major redesign, and I'm all about it. While everyone referenced the iPhone 4 when the iPhone 12 came out with its squared off sides when it was released, really it's a lot closer to the iPhone 5 in terms of the design, with the display and rear panels flush with the frame, while the iPhone 4 was a full glass sandwich with the panels sitting above the frame. And that's what looks like we're going to get with the iPhone 14 too. Of course, inside we'll have the A16 SoC, likely to be manufactured by TSMC as usual, but on a 4nm process, which if Apple did nothing else but change the node size would be around 20% more efficient. Along with the new SoC, one of the most annoying things about the iPhone right now will be fixed: the desk wobble. It looks like the new design will be noticeably thicker than the 12 or the 13, but this extra girth will allow camera lenses to finally be flush with the back surface again. No more camera bumps. Now this is pretty cool on its own, but remember we'd heard about reverse wireless charging coming to future iPad Pro models, and we've also seen that Apple's MagSafe Duo charger was only just compatible with the iPhone 13 Pro, given the larger camera bump, making connection very tenuous. If it's all nice and flat, MagSafe will be way easier to implement on different devices. We could see MagSafe pads coming to more devices to charge your iPhones, your AirPods, and your peripherals. So there's two sides of the palm rest on your MacBook trackpad. Those would be a great place to be able to drop your AirPods when you need to grab a bit more charge. The foot of an iMac would be an ideal place to MagSafe charge your iPhone, or in fact, your keyboard and maybe your Magic Mouse for your desktop setup. Even the top of the new Mac Mini that we're expecting to see at the spring event, that would be a great place to charge stuff using MagSafe. Oh, and those cameras on the iPhone 14 that are going flush are also likely to get a major upgrade as well, from the current 12 megapixels up to 48 megapixels, giving enough pixels to offer 8K video for the first time in an iPhone, which would also mean we'd potentially get cinematic video bumping up to 4K and a whole bunch of other advantages, though those pixels will be likely smaller individually. So Apple might well opt for 12 megapixel images coming out to reduce your storage requirements as default, and then Pixel Bin, which will reduce noise in the images and keep the great low light performance. We're also supposed to be dumping the notch from the iPhone Pro models, although recent rumours show that those sensors that hide inside the eye hole on the front, which it does look like an iPhone letter I, right? The lowercase one. Those show that there's not going to be a lot more space on the screen, though I hope everyone will be excited for the 2-pixel high row of extra space above the cameras and the FaceTime sensors. On that topic though, do you actually care about the notch? I personally don't, but would you prefer to lose Face ID just to have a hole punch and a bit more space at the top of the display and go back to a Touch ID sensor, whether that's under the display or on the power button? Bearing in mind that it's far less secure using Touch ID than Face ID. Let me know in the comments, and while we're on iPhones, here's an archive answer question from Team Kinetics on the iPhone 14. Rumour has it that the next iPhone Pro models will have more RAM than previous phones. Can you think of any potential reasons or wish list cases for more RAM on the iPhone? I'd like more interactive widgets. More RAM could certainly facilitate more widget functionality. And it's a great point. Yes, there are rumours that we're going to get 8 gigabytes of unified memory, we're going to call it, because I guess it's the same as we get in Apple Silicon. It's probably not RAM as we kind of understand it, which is also why we tend to use less as well than most of the Androids out there. But I think that the extra RAM, the extra unified memory, is really there for the video and photography processing. If we're going up to 48 megapixels, and potentially 8K video, then that is going to be a lot more resource intensive, and I would think that's probably what is going on there. That is the most likely outcome from my point of view. I've got a feeling that Apple is looking to just do a lot more with these images. That's probably it. If we're talking about the widgets, I don't think any more RAM is needed for any of that, any more unified memory, because these widgets are basically just on the home screen and nothing else is really going on there. There's not a huge amount of processing that's going to be needed for any of those. Pretty much all of the background apps are suspended when you're on home screen, unless there's specific functionality going on with, background checks and that sort of thing, or maybe a video rendering in the background. But again, normally that is suspended during when you're in other apps. So that would be my thought on that, but let me know your thoughts in the comments. Next up, Akash Sada asks, iCave answers, when do you think proper external display support would come to the iPad? For my use as a student, it's the only thing that's missing. This is a question that I get asked a lot, and honestly, I'm not sure how Apple can do it. It's one of those big issues that the iPad has because of the typical input method. Now, I know that you can get the Magic Keyboard with the Magic Trackpad, and you could potentially control a couple of displays that way. But that is then saying that if you want to use a secondary display with your iPad as another interaction point, then you have to buy this accessory as well as having the extra display and the cabling and everything else. That doesn't really feel like the sort of thing that Apple will do. The big problem with external displays for an iPad is most external displays aren't touchpads. They're not touch-sensitive displays. I think what Apple could do is something along the lines of what they've done with Universal Control, and you would be able to literally have a second iPad, maybe an older iPad, that you use as an external display for your main iPad. So everything comes from the same iPad. It's all running on your primary iPad, if that's an iPad Pro, for example, but the touch interaction becomes your way of interacting with it. That would be the best way, I would think, but if you have a better solution for me, please let me know. Evan Rogers asks, iCave answers, will we get any new colour options for iPhone 13 or iPhone 13 mini at the spring event? Last year we got purple. I'm not sure. I think the iPhone stuff is all pretty much going to be covered by getting the new SE. I don't think they're necessarily going to bring out a new colour. I mean, I think it did quite well last year because my wife has the iPhone 12 mini in purple because it came out at that event and it looked pretty cool. Other than that, I'm not convinced that that's something that Apple needs to do. Would it be cool if they do? Yeah, it would. Stephen Bryce asks, iCave answers, will Apple bring back Aperture? I would think that Apple bringing back Aperture would be a great thing for Apple to do if they were going to do this kind of full suite of like Pro apps, especially if they were going to do like an Apple Pro subscription, a bit along the lines of what they have with Apple One for the kind of consumer stuff with the with Apple TV and Arcade and all that sort of stuff. If they wanted to do a Pro level photo editing suite, that would be good. The difficulty is that most of the functionality of Aperture has now moved over to the Photos app, which means that you can do a lot of that kind of non-destructive editing in Photos. So whether it's worth them doing it, I'm not sure, but I'd like to see it if I'm honest. And Marcel Kowalczyk asks, iCave Dave, do you think that the recent closures of air routes might affect logistics for Apple in Asia and the Eurasian regions? I don't think so at the moment. I think Apple's logistics are pretty good. I think flying around, what is essentially a war zone. There's only Ukraine itself that actually they wouldn't be able to fly over. Probably Russia, but I don't think they come that way anyway. So I don't think it's going to cause any major issues. I think far more of an issue is the fact that the vast majority of neon, which is used in lasers for etching SoCs and silicon chips, that a lot of that comes from Ukraine. A lot of other metals and all that sort of stuff comes from Ukraine and Russia, so there might be some issues there. But I think it's going to be more about production than logistics. Just a quick edit time, Dave, to cut in here and say I'm fully aware that the worst thing going on with everything in Ukraine is not the fact that it might slow down deliveries. It's a terrible thing. Obviously, we stand with Ukraine, and just wanted to make that clear because I didn't want to come across as a guy that's like, well, it might slow down my phones. Armin Dressler asks, iCave answers, are there any rumours, leaks or news about Apple's applications, especially Pro apps? I'd really like to know what's coming next to Logic Pro, for example. And no, everything's gone really quiet on this. I think part of the reason is because Apple's really kind of doubling down on secrecy. Again, we've had a lot less leaks about anything. Software is always a difficult thing to find out about because there's nothing being made externally to this, to Apple themselves. Everything is being built internally. The features are put together internally. They don't have to send it out to be manufactured anywhere. We're at the point now where we're not even getting boxed software. So, there's not even a packaging manufacturer that could be doing something, finding out who's duplicating discs. None of that's going to happen. So it's very, very quiet. I think I would love to see Final Cut Pro getting streaming support. So Apple's own version of OBS, something along those lines. I think that would be great. Logic Pro is going to be, I would guess, more focused around spatial audio and that side of things. But we will see. But as I say, no real rumours at this point. Have a look at what Apple's done in terms of hardware and things that could support it. So more lossless and more spatial audio. Probably the way they'll go with Logic. Thanks so much for watching this show, guys. We have got a couple more reviews coming up. We've got the robot vacuum coming very soon. We've got the charge tree swing at the back there. That'll be out in the next couple of days. Thanks to the Patreons up here. These guys support the channel. If you want to be a supporter and get ad-free versions of all of our videos, then join us, iCaveDave.com/Patreon. Thanks so much for watching. See you in the next one.